So if you just hopped on, please rename yourself with just an abbreviation of your group and then the topic of breakout that you want to join. And the list of topics is in the chat. So we're going to get going. I'm Lisa Herrick. So I'm 31st Street. And Mary, Jim, Aaron, and I, and we also have leaders, George Hastings, Michelle Hainbach, and Adele Dari. And we're all going to be here to just facilitate the conversations in the breakouts, although the content of those conversations is going to be all your own. But I just want to take a very little time because I want to leave enough room for Jim to talk about some material. Just how thrilling it is for us that you are all here. This was Mary Pence's idea, Mary Shelton Pence. She is Jim's sister, for those of you who didn't know that. And we have talked for a number of years in 31st Street just about how exciting it is whenever we cross paths and intersect with other grassroots groups and other leaders who are doing amazing things. But also just sort of frustration that a lot of our work is done in silos. And when we cross paths, it's like a little bonus that we get these wonderful conversations. You know, Jim does a lot of crossing paths and a lot of talking to people who are running other groups, but most of us really don't get a chance to talk to the leaders of other grassroots groups. And Mary and several of us got really excited about the idea of just having the start of a conversation about what we are all doing and what we want to do better and what we think we're doing great that we could share with each other so that other people might be able to do things, you know, improve in some ways that they want to improve. So we have a modest ambition today. We're just taking an hour. And for all of us who have ever gone to a training or a workshop, I don't know about you, but I always sort of say to myself, look, if I get one nugget, I'm going to be happy I went. And so we're hoping that you will leave tonight with at least one nugget, or as Jim says, one pearl. So really the structure of tonight is that Jim is going to go over some slides, some information. We're going to break up into small discussions based on topic of interest. We think those groups are going to be, you know, relatively small. Probably if a zillion people have signed up for one topic, we might have 2 breakout groups for that topic. Aaron Hamburger is going to be doing some of the Zoom mastering, moving people around. And we'll have 20 minutes in those small groups. And there are some spark questions that we will share with you when you break out. They're very general questions just to help you kind of structure the conversation so you can kind of dive in immediately into talking about things. And we will be asking you to have one reporter from each group who will bring back 2 pearls to share in the larger group when we do the last part of this meeting. And so we're just hoping that everybody just gets like a little nugget of thought, but we're also hoping that you meet somebody in your breakout group that excites you, that you might get their email. Mary will share everybody's email, and maybe you will follow up after this in some way and get the benefit of a connection with somebody that you've met tonight. So those are our hopes. So thank you all so much for coming. It's really thrilling that there are this many people here. And I'm going to hand it over to Jim, and I'll see you later. And I'll see some of you in a breakout group. Okay, take it away, Jim.
Hi, yeah, Jim, the political analyst with 31st Street. I know almost all of you, and I'm really happy that you're here. I think we have quite a brain trust. And I'm going to just jump right into my slides, hopefully. People seeing that okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just have a bunch of nuggets. It's pretty eclectic to sort of talk about some things that I think are going on that will hopefully help move us generally in the right direction, but also be perhaps provide some substrate for some conversation. So first, of course, you know what this means. We're hanging by a thread, all 3 aspects of our government. And so just to remind us of that, you all know that. A little bit of data related to that that I think is pretty helpful is to look at what happened in 2020 versus 2018. It's little apples and oranges comparing the House to the presidency. But if you look at the overall Democratic vote in 18 in terms of just numbers of people voting versus for the vote for Biden, there's two really important points. First of all, that we increased our number of people that voted for Biden over the House races by 20 million. But notice that the Republicans actually increased by 23 million. And so they were able to turn out their voters actually better than we did. And we only won by the skin of our teeth, as you know, so we had to be prepared for that. The other point is that if you actually look at who won the election, I sometimes like to say didn't vote won. There were still 84 million people eligible to register and many registered who didn't vote. That's why voter registration and turnout to me are still the highest priority for what we do strategically. Within that win, where did that come from? This is vote share. Notice that the white college vote, of course, was the largest thing that helped us. We lost vote share among Black voters and Hispanic voters and actually Asian voters as well. We gained in white non-college voters, and that's a huge number of voters. So that really did help us, particularly in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan. The trick for me, the priority for me is that we have to get all these working class, voters, I can go back. Anyway, we have to get our work, there we go. We can get there. Working class voters are the key to what we want to do. And I don't want us to neglect the white non-college voters because they can be, many of them will be with us if we go at it right. And so there is this quote that the future of the party is based on a multi-ethnic, multiracial working class coalition. And who do you suppose said that? Marco Rubio. So he and other Republicans are after the same set of people that we see, at least I see, as the major set of voters we need to win over. And the way they win them over, and they've been doing this for decades, is with all these wedge issues, all these distractions. When you hear somebody talking on Fox News or whatever and so forth, it's usually one of these things that they're, whether it's cancel culture or whatever, we have to counter that with the kind of things that are actually, I think, more important and really more important to these voters, where many of them are with us. And fortunately, all these things are things that Biden is taking really good leadership on, and but our strategy ought to be to try to build on that as well. Okay, just one slide again about strategy. This happens to be our strategy, just to share it with you. You all are smart people and you've got good strategies too. Many, I think, are focusing on the Senate races. That's a lot of what our priorities are. Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, and Georgia. Virginia, of course, is different. It's the odd year elections this year. Pennsylvania and Georgia are Senate and gubernatorial races, and North Carolina, they're near for us. We're being relatively focused. We know there are these other Senate races as well, and you can throw in Nevada as well. And we think that that's a very good North Star to start with. It's more difficult to deal with the US House to try to be strategic. We'll have to wait until redistricting, and we'll have to, it's just much more diffuse, even though that's equally important. All right, so one thing we don't think is particularly useful for us, at least, is to donate directly to Senate and House campaigns if the current previous trends continue, which is that they have huge amounts of money. And it's great that they do, but they're going to. So the real question is, what's the marginal value We think that our additional whatever $500 that would go to candidates like this really is much better spent on something else that we think is better. These are data from the first quarter of this year. They're not sort of quite as stratospheric as the end of 2020, but they'll get there. So what are those other things? Well, the main one, as you may know, is we have this thing we call power up effect, the reverse coattails, where we think we can actually do better for what we call the marquee candidates, the candidates for statewide election, by supporting local candidates, especially legislature candidates, and that those candidates will bring out voters, those low propensity voters who otherwise wouldn't necessarily come out. And wouldn't you know it, that the New York Times on Friday ran a nice article that many of you may have read of an analysis done by Run for Something. And here's the key quote. They did a regression analysis, and their finding was that simply having a Democratic candidate on the ballot resulted in an increase in the turnout at the top of the ticket, in this case for Biden. So I've looked at this as carefully as I could. I don't actually have the study, but my takeaway is that actually this is a fairly significant underestimate of effect. I mean, I like it. It feeds into my, my bias, my hindsight bias, and my bias that I like when something shows what I think is true. But the fact is, they didn't actually look at the most important thing, and it's very hard to do, which is the quality or the strength of the particular campaign. It's very hard to measure that, so they didn't measure it. Had they measured it, my view is that we would see a much higher, much better effect. And in my view, it's much better money spent during that kind of situation. And that applies to Virginia this year, in my opinion. So shifting again, and this sort of eclectic menu, if we're thinking about 2022, it's really all about investment, because calling now, texting now is not really going to have very much impact unless there's some, or even canvassing now, although deep canvassing might have some effect. So what is it? Well, there's a menu of things that many of you I know are already supporting. You're supporting a lot of other organizations, grassroots organizations, C3s, C4s that do a variety of things, some sort of miscellaneous. The one I'm just going to spend a minute or two on, though, is the fourth bullet on the list here, which is the Democratic Party. Because my view is, in this three-legged stool of what it takes to win, we really should be doing our best to strengthen the Democratic Party, believe it or not. And it turns out that one of the big problems, I'm sure many of you are aware of this, is we have this roller coaster phenomenon, which is that there's all this buildup when there's a new campaign and a new election. And once the election's over, it all fades away, or almost all of it fades away. And when the next election season comes around, people are playing catch up. They're trying to put things together at the last minute. They're hiring people. They're getting stuff working. They're making connections, and it's all after the fact. So what we need to do is to get something that really moves along and moves a lot of cargo and people. Forgive the metaphor. So one of the things that's really been quite interesting is that among the various Democratic parties at state level, the Wisconsin model has really stood out. It stood out in 2018 when they won statewide elections, and they did, again, a very good job in winning Wisconsin in the face of very high Republican turnout. And so it's sort of been a bit of a challenge to try to figure out what actually did they do. And they have a very kind of famous neighborhood organizational model, but it wasn't clear about how they did it. And more importantly, they seem to do it relatively cheaply. So basically, this is what we've learned recently, is how they've done this. And I think it's possible to do this in other states. They have a central staff, which is actually very, very competent. But then they also have regional organizing directors. So these are not field organizers. These are organizing directors that are paid staff whose job it is to sort of support the next line. And the real frontline action is with local volunteer leaders. They're not paid. And what they do is that they have local volunteers. So the way this model works is that the regional organizer's job is to recruit, to nurture, to train, to motivate these local volunteer groups. And they work with existing social capital, whether it's individual groups or the precinct structure or whatever. And they get these people. And the beauty of it is that they're not paying these people in money, at least they're paying them psychically, hopefully. But also those people are not going anywhere. Or if they go someplace, they're not going very, they of course, some come and go, but basically they're pretty permanent, and they develop relationships and competency and so forth. And it's like, it's a permanent neighborhood model. And it's proved out, they just had their election April 16th, they re-elected a statewide candidate for superintendent of instruction by 17.5 percentage points statewide. Wow. And a bunch of down ballot races as well. So why am I going on about this? Because I think it works really well. And I think we have the potential to move some of the other state parties toward this. It builds on local social capital. The question is, all right, now what do these groups do on the ground? You know, here's the list: canvassing, voter registration, recruiting volunteers, training, fundraising, local issue mobilization. A key thing to keep people working on something, whether it's, you know, COVID vaccines or unemployment registration, or something like that. Now, one thing to notice is what's interesting about this list is it's the same list that many other of the C3s and C4s, or more of the C4s, do. So it's not really that it's all that different what they actually do on the ground. The difference is that it's the party doing this, and there actually is some major comparative advantages for the party doing it in a complementary fashion to the C3s and C4s. And there's a great organization that's been started by a woman named Martha Lanning, who helped getting this thing going in Wisconsin, called SPAN. And we're working with her, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to leverage working with her to help move the Pennsylvania party, which is very much in the roller coaster mode, toward this other model. So with that other nugget, I appreciate your listening to me. Hopefully there were some ideas that didn't go by too fast. And thank you. Over.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so what we're going to do now is move folks into your breakout groups. So we are going to have some time after the breakout groups, and after we hear a little bit about what you've come out of the breakout groups with, to have some general questions and answers and discussion. So we are going to have a little bit of time to do that, but we do want to make sure we give you some time to have conversations. And Mary is reminding us that we are going to send out Jim's PowerPoint to everybody. So you'll have all those slides. So Aaron is going to put up on the screen all the breakout groups according to the topic. And is that what you're going to do, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm going to open all the rooms now. You'll get an invitation to join your room. So just click on that join, you will be in there. And you know, North Carolina, you're a big group, so you may want to move things along in your group, just so you know. So anyway, here we go.
It's going to go around. You know, in my group, we were talking so fast, it was hard to even organize who was going to be delivering the pearls and what the pearls were. So I'm going to start with my group, because that will let the other reporters get ready to report their pearls. But I'm going to ask Dory to unmute and report a pearl.
Okay, so I was in the outreach group. I think there might have been more than one outreach group, maybe, I'm not sure. And we talked a lot about various outreach activities that we did, and ways that we we ourselves organize the groups, whether they're organized in kind of state-focused teams or activity-focused teams. And there was a mix of that. My own group is kind of activity-focused, and we set the state targets at the top, for what that's worth, and people would join a phone team or a letter writing team and so forth. There were a lot of questions about the effectiveness of many interventions, which I hear all the time, and it's a big issue because there's not perfect data on what the effectiveness of various interventions to voters are. And from what I understand, in the most recent election, because there was such huge turnout, although as we have just learned, the turnout wasn't really huge, it was just comparatively huge. But because of that, the intervention, the effect of each individual intervention that you can tease out was actually relatively low. So almost everything we were doing last fall, when you look at it in a study context, it looks relatively ineffective. Of course, that isn't really true, but it so happened that there was so much else going on surrounding that election that everything together got a lot of people out to vote. Nonetheless, we talked about.
You know what? I'm going to have to cut you off, Dory.
Okay, all right. I didn't know how long I had.
That's okay. Everybody gets just like a minute or two to
Oh, okay.
deliver a little piece of wisdom from your group. A pearl or two. Okay, another reporter. Just unmute yourself and call out, because I don't know who your reporters are.
So I got actually 3 pearls.
Great.
From our little group. One was that there's been a discussion of a sort of shift from candidates to funding groups, which is an interesting kind of shift, particularly for Force Multiplier in Boston, because we were all about candidates and voter empowerment groups, but candidates figure big. The Wisconsin Democrats model of building a permanent sort of presence seems very compelling and important. And I think finally, particularly for us, making it personal in a way that we don't do. And I think if we're going to really kind of figure out how to grow our organization and raise more money from the people we already have, it's got to be making it more personal.
Thank you. That's excellent. I like the pearls. Okay, somebody else with a pearl or two.
All right,
Yes,
hi, Paul Curtis from Team Friends C. I'll speak for the North Carolina group. Two specific pearls which are actually connected. One is Jeff used the term radical collaboration, which we loved. Radical collaboration among our groups, doing a deep dive into what that means, how we can better coordinate our efforts going forward, whether it's sharing phone banking plans, dividing up territory in the states, or in the state in different counties, seats, et cetera. And combining that improved collaboration with an intensive process of listening to and learning from folks on the ground in the state. All of this hopefully leading to a much simplified and much better coordinated collaboration between the out-of-state groups and the in-state groups.
I love it. I love that. That's wonderful. Okay, another pearl deliverer.
Okay,
So I'll tell you what.
Speed dating only for grassroots.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll tell you what we're doing. I mean, it's kind of, we had a very small group for Pennsylvania. So just in general, just talking about, kind of all these different collaborations, because there's a lot of different collaborations out there, and we see a lot of the same people on this screen. And one of the collaborations that we're doing right now is with Move and Voter Project, which is a fabulous resource. I mean, we're dedicating our time and resources to raising money for grassroots groups working in communities of color. MVP got crazy good resources as far as research, but even for us, it gives us an ability to raise C3 money for grassroots groups. If we're talking about Pennsylvania, the group we're supporting there is One Pennsylvania. We've been funding their C3 since their C4 since January of 2019, 20. And now that we're aligned with MVP, we're able to raise money, raise C3 dollars, get full transparency as far as where the money's going, get donor advised funds. It's going to be able to leverage a lot more money for our people, because the groups are very interested at this point, particularly in the cycle, for getting C3 money, and MVP makes that really easy for us.
That's great. That's terrific. Yes, we have been really impressed with them as well. Okay, someone else.
Yeah, this was for the strategy group. We had a continued discussion from Jim's presentation, and we came away with three things. One is a focus on the state legislature was key. Early money to candidates, very important. And then establishing deep roots in communities and infrastructure. So that was our three takeaways.
Excellent, and very pithy as well. Somebody else? Anyone else? Have we missed any groups?
Lisa, yeah, I'm going to report for the Virginia group. We had 5 different groups represented there, all from the greater DC area, all of which are intending to send both money and canvassers, especially to the certain districts, contested districts in Virginia this year. And I guess our best gem was that we were talking about seeing if we could facilitate ways for the campaigns to deal with, instead of dealing with one person from each of our 5 groups, could deal with one person from all the groups. And then that person could then redistribute the information to the 5 groups, and there might be more groups that could be added into that, and that might be really helpful to the campaigns, that they wouldn't have to deal with so many outside groups when they set up a canvassing weekend. And our second nugget was that to work together in selecting our slate of candidates, to at least to share information as to why we're choosing this district instead of that one, and to see what extent we can help each other select districts.
Excellent.
Over.
That sounds like a wonderful Pearl. I love that. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in. I was in Pennsylvania and what George is saying. All of us have, we throw out these phone banks against the wall and hope it sticks and hoping someone shows up. We hope that we are canvassing weekend. So if there's a subgroup that wants to work on this, not just publicizing what Do the Most Good is doing or what 31st Street is doing, but really, okay, let's all work in Scranton for 2 weekends. Let's all work in Virginia for 2 weekends. And so that everybody is sending their volunteers to the exact same function, or Monday nights phone banking for Virginia, or Wednesdays for Pennsylvania. Much more, finite, specific partnerships on either canvassing or phone banking or postcarding. So Do the Most Good would like to be at that table to help better coordinate.
Awesome. Wonderful. That's an excellent idea. Okay, have I missed any groups? I think Dory wants to say something really quick, but have I missed any groups? Okay, Dory, you're on. You're muted.
I didn't include a Pearl. The Pearl is, we're going to be starting a postcard trial very soon for Virginia. I know postcards aren't typically effective, but we're going to try a couple different tweaks, including local focus group testing in Virginia to see the effectiveness of postcards. So if people want to join up with us, we'd be happy to do that.
To do the research on effectiveness. Yeah, that would be, we'd all love to know that. Okay.
Did we hear from fundraising? Did I miss
Did
that?
we? I think, did we hear that was Stephen, right? That was
Oh,
Stephen.
it's Stephen. Okay, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, okay. But Jim, is there anything you want to share? Anything else you wanted to say?
Probably
Do
many
you
things.
have a Pearl, Jim?
Let's let somebody else. Let's see if
Okay.
somebody else has something to say.
All right. Any other thoughts? Yeah, we have a few more minutes. Just any other thoughts you want to yell out? Yeah, just unmute yourself.
Lisa,
I
we
want
have
to
a question.
respond to a question that is in the chat. There will be an evaluation form that will go out to everybody that I have. And so for some groups, I only have one email address, and there may be 3 or 4 of you from that group here, but I will send this evaluation form with Jim's slides and with the pearls to the best of my ability to capture them. And then there will be a question about what should we do next. So first we want to know, did you find this effective? Did you find this helpful? And if so, where might we go from there?
Thanks. And somebody else I think was going to say something. Can't remember who that was.
Yeah,
You can-
I was just gonna say in the chat, someone asked, will there be a second meeting and can we invite other groups to it? So, I mean, I think if folks are interested, great. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch. Yeah, anybody else want to say anything else? Just any other comment? You can certainly put it in the chat.
So Michael's inviting me to let you all know that 31st Street is planning 2 big fundraisers with what I call a hook. The first one will be in May, and the hook is Mother's Day. And so we will be soliciting co-hosts who have a mother they would like to honor. It could be your own mother, it could be an aunt, it could be a grandmother. And so you would invite, that co-host would invite everybody to come to the fundraiser who wants to honor. In my case, it would be Julia Shelton. And so you could have any number of co-hosts all honoring a particular woman in that particular co-host's life. That May fundraiser will be for Pennsylvania. And then we're going to do a June fundraiser similarly around Father's Day. And that one will be for Virginia. It will be after the primaries in Virginia, which I think is the 8th of June. And so then we'll know for sure who the candidates are, and we'll do a fundraiser for our slate. I mean, it's just a question. Let me put it this way. I have a question that I wrestle with in my mind about the size of Zoom fundraisers. And there's 2 different schools of thought. One is that there's an intimacy that comes from having a group of 20 or 30. Let's suppose we were honoring Lisa Herrick's mother, and all of her siblings and her cousins and people who grew up with her, that all the people who came to that fundraiser would have a connection to Lisa's family. So that's one sort of model. The other extreme is just having a gazillion co-hosts, like up to 20, 30, 40 co-hosts, and have hundreds of people. And then you get a feeling of excitement and being part of something bigger than yourself. So the question I'm putting out there is, might there be another group or 2 that would like to partner with us on those May and June fundraisers? Just a question. Or you could copy the idea and do it yourself.
You don't need an answer now.
So feel free to put your answer in the chat. So we are going to wind up now, actually, because we're going to end on time. Something 31st Street likes to do is start on time and end on time.
Could I say something? Could I say
yes, Jim, jump in.
First of all, anybody wants to talk to me one-on-one, just let me know. I'm open to talk to anybody, any of you one-on-one. And I'm assuming that the handout will have like some email list of the organizations. And is everybody okay with having their emails shared? I take it there's no particular problem. Okay, so I think a lot of the value ends up being one-on-one kind of collaboration. That's right. Over.
Okay, so I think the bottom line is, for those of you who are here, I'll speak for myself. I find it very energizing, and I feel like they're little nuggets, they're little seeds that we haven't had any time to grow or even water, but we know that there's a zillion seeds, deep canvassing, collaboration, more research, having boots on the ground all year long, every year, centralizing, streamlining communication for all these campaigns, like all of these are amazing ideas, and having creative ways of fundraising, like in honor of mothers or in honor of fathers or in honor of brothers or sisters. So there's a lot of different ways to go forward. Basically, we will be in touch, and any of you who would like to continue to be in touch with this coalition or any version of it, you'll just let us know. And I have a feeling there will be a next step. We're not quite sure what it will be. And we will take all of your feedback into account of what kind of next step would feel most effective. We could create a Slack channel for this coalition. We could have a monthly or bi-monthly meeting that's longer than 1 hour. There's a lot of different things we could think of doing. Or any of us on this Zoom could connect at any point to collaborate in any way on a state, on a campaign, on an idea. So basically, we are just really, really glad that you came. We thank you, and we hope to see you again very soon. And thank you to Mary for putting this all together.